the college football playoff, which of course was announced yesterday, and the college football playoff bracket is out, and James Madison is in. James Madison is in. Tulane is in. Both of them are losing their coaches. Here's where we, as media, we're the worst. Right? Like James Madison or as fans, you're the worst. James Madison and Tulane, they've both lost their coaches, and yet they're still playing in the college football playoff, and it wasn't made to a big deal that their coaches are coaching their team in the college football playoff. But Ole Miss, it was made into a massive, massive deal, and Lane Kiffin can't coach, but his offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss Jr., can coach. But we're here, don't kid yourself, we're here because we're trying to be fair in a completely unfair sport. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be fair in an unfair sport. That's the reality of it. The reality of it. It's not to say that Tulane and James Madison couldn't win a game, but there is literally 0.0000001% they could win 3 games. And no one disagrees with me. And they're not built for that. They just are not. Because the attrition of every game in a college football playoff is going to be so great that by the time, if they could ever even get to the semifinals, it'd be hard for them to field a team. And because those 2 spots are taken by automatic qualifiers from we call it the Power 5, which again, it's kind of laughable. We call it the Power 5. When you got the Power 4, but it's not even really the Power 4. It's really the Power 2, and then the next 2, and then everybody else that doesn't really matter. It's what it is. So because we want so badly to replicate the NCAA tournament where we have this Cinderella, even though the sports are very, very different, we jam into teams that they've had great seasons, they've been great turnaround stories, and they have good talent. It's not that James Madison's not good, not that Tulane's not good. They're just not one of the 12 best teams in the country, and no one's really arguing that. So when you're trying to play to different masters, if you will, hey, we're trying to find the 12 best teams, but we got to get these teams in that we know don't really belong with that group. But how do we make it all work? This is what we come up with. And it's really interesting. What I'm going to say, I know to be true. Nobody's told me to say it. Nobody said, hey, help us out here. Talk about Notre Dame because you went there. I went there and I had to leave. So I have no... I do have a love for Notre Dame. I think it's a spectacular place, a special place. But it's not because of that. It's because I live in the real world of college athletics that I'm going to tell you Notre Dame has said and done everything exactly the way I would do it. They have every right to be pissed at the ACC. Every right. Every single right to be ticked off at the ACC. And they're smart to not play in a bowl game because they're saving us all from inevitably saying, well, Notre Dame, should they have been in? Should they not been in? Let's see how they play in the bowl game when half the guys don't play. Right? It's like the Florida State thing. Florida State I didn't think they should have got in the college football playoff 2 years ago, but they didn't have their quarterback, and then half the guys don't play. Then they lose in the bowl game, and you're like, see, Florida State's a phony. Like, no, I didn't think they were good enough, but half their guys didn't play. The bowl games have gone away. The only thing they're really there for now is guys that want to put something on tape to leave, or guys that are freshmen, they're going to get a shot in the bowl game, and they wouldn't get a shot otherwise. And you're trying to develop your culture while having a great trip. But the bowl games no longer mean anything. And Notre Dame actually separated themselves as a serious college football program. Hey, we're just in to win a championship. We got to the finals last year. We lost 2 close games this year. Felt like we should have probably beat A&M. Didn't do it. Got left out. We're not going to fake it and go to a bowl game when that's not what we're playing for. And that's not what anybody cares about anymore. And half the players don't play anymore. And we're not going to be judged on our season when half of our team is not going to play in a meaningless bowl game. And even if they do play in the bowl game, one, they risk injury. Notre Dame's had that, a traumatic injury about a decade ago in the Cotton Bowl. And then 2, I think they had one last year, actually, in the college football playoff. They had a big injury in the game against Indiana. Okay? And then 2, who they play against may be, even if they have all their guys, the team they play against is probably going to have half their guys. So what are we doing? I don't know everything about college athletics, even coaching in college athletics. But I do know what Pete Bevacqua said is true. Like, there's some unwritten rules that everybody knows about conferences, right? You can criticize somebody within your own conference. Dan's a gigantic Big Ten fan. So he can talk trash on, well, Michigan may be the one that he doesn't care if everybody talks trash about. But generally, don't say anything bad about the Big Ten or my Big Ten brethren, because on some level, when he's an Ohio State fan, right? As an Ohio State fan, if you take shots at the league, that kind of takes shots at the credibility of the program. It's just not done. It's just not done. You know, I'm in the Horizon League. And even though our commissioner has left and it's a vacated position, I know enough to go, I'm not going to criticize any other program or what they do or how they do, because they're in our league. That's your conference brethren. Here's Pete Bevacqua earlier today. He was on with Dan Patrick. He had this to say about the ACC.
We're frustrated with the process, not the teams. They're all great teams, and it's a bunch of teams. BYU has a great argument, Texas, Vanderbilt, Miami, Alabama, Notre Dame. We all have great arguments. It's the process that bothers us.
Well, those ranking shows bother me, Pete, because...
Well, they bother me too, because, you know, if we said, well, if we had assembled as a team on Sunday and rankings hadn't told us for the previous weeks, we're in, take care of business, and hey, you know what, Notre Dame, you're 11, and now you're going to get squeezed out because of the conference tie-ins, and Miami beat you, and hey, I get it. But these ranking shows, as I said yesterday, like, what's the point? Why kind of send these signals and get the hopes up of these teams, these coaches, these kids on the team that believe they're doing everything necessary? And then, like I said, it just felt in that room a collective sense of the rug being taken out from under us without any explanation that I've heard, Dan, that has me feeling better about it. I have tremendous respect for Miami, you know, great team, great school, but we were mystified by the actions of the conference to attack, you know, their biggest really business partner in football and a member of their conference in 24 of our other sports. I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't say that they have certainly done permanent damage to the relationship between the conference and Notre Dame.
I will point out that while I believe he's right, and I'm going to give him a pass because I don't think that he manages Notre Dame's social media. Notre Dame on Saturday, when the Big 12 championship game was being played, they posted the logo of Texas Tech on Notre Dame's social media sites. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have to, they're Catholic. They don't have to support Mormons. They can say whatever they want about respecting BYU and their opponents or whatever. That was a little gamesmanship. We're cheering for Texas Tech because if Texas Tech wins, we feel like we're in, which is what most people thought, only it didn't happen that way. So there is a slight lack of professionalism, and I will totally grant you, Ken, at a school that big, that prestigious, I'm guessing Pete Bevacqua doesn't manage or micromanage the social media handle of the football program, but there was a little there. Now BYU is not a conference brethren, not a conference foe. They do occasionally play Notre Dame in a series, and so maybe that goes out the window. I don't know. What I do know is he's right. The ACC, you can't do it. The overwhelming support of, well, they're a full-time member. Like, come on, man, what are we doing here? You know, if Miami's good enough, Miami's good enough. It doesn't have to be Miami versus Notre Dame. I would also point out that the constant reruns of Miami Notre Dame on the ACC network is not under the control of the ACC. It's really under the control of ESPN. And, oh, yeah, by the way, it's kind of brilliant. Play the best games so you watch them all over again, because there's been a lot of bad games this year in college football. But you can't give support to one and not the other. You don't criticize or take shots at anybody who's in any way associated with your conference. You just don't do that. You just don't do that. This is the Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. I think they're right. I think the ACC was wrong. I think they belonged in. I don't know about not hearing an explanation. I think you know the explanation. They took the Tulane and they got squeezed out. Tulane and JMU, they got squeezed out. I don't think that's a problem with process. I think that's a problem with the fact that we're trying to be fair in a completely unfair system, in an unfair sport. They don't let you go like, hey, Alabama, you're way better than this opponent, so you got to play with 10 guys because that's fair. They don't do that. They don't say, hey, Ohio State, you have $30 million in NIL. This school you're playing only has 5. So you're not going to be able to play guys that 25 extra million, you can't play guys. It's an unfair sport, especially the attrition of it. So we're trying to make it fair by putting JMU in there and by putting Tulane in there? It doesn't make any sense. And it is not. It is actually unfair to the idea of we're trying to find the 12 best teams. Either try and find the 12 best teams or make it fair. And I'd say fair with the air quotes from friends. Fair. And if you make it fair, you're not going to have the 12 best teams, which is what you have here. And, oh, yeah, by the way, it does give credence to what we've all said is it doesn't matter if you have 2 teams, 4 teams, 6 teams, 8 teams, 12 teams, 16 teams. Whoever is team 3 if you're going for 2 back in the day, 5 when you're going for 4, 13 when you're going for 12, 17 and 18 when you're going for 16, they're all going to be ticked. And they're all going to have legitimate arguments. And somebody won't get in. But in this case, Notre Dame, they're not wrong. They have every right to be ticked at the ACC, and they're smart to not play in a bowl game, which is completely and utterly meaningless. And the only thing it can do is cap off what was a great season with a loss with half your team when it just feels like it doesn't feel like a real football game. The bowl season was killed with the college football playoff expansion. That's just the reality of it. Everybody knows it, and Notre Dame is owning it. Owning it.